Hi, my name is Brad Stieg. I'm with Harvest Guard Reusable Canning Lids, and I'm here to talk to you today about Harvest Guard Reusable Canning Lids and how to use them. We see people ask questions about, what's the difference between Harvest Guard reusable lids and metal lids, or, I heard there's a learning curve. So I want to help you just get past a couple of those things as far as the learning curve is concerned. I'll show you some tricks, tips, really easy to make your canning experience a little bit better for those of you who have already bought Harvest Guard lids, or for those of you who are thinking about it. I think the next couple minutes will be very helpful, so let's get to it. Okay, so what's the difference between Harvest Guard reusable canning lids and standard metal lids? And how do you use them differently? Well, the simple answer is there's two parts in reusable lids. There's a plastic lid and there's a rubber gasket. Both of them are reusable, and if you want to know more information about reusability and some of the other interesting things about the reusable lids, visit our website at canninglids.com. We have a frequently asked questions page. It's a great resource. Today we really want to focus on how do you apply this combination onto the top of the jar with the metal band and make sure you get a good seal every time. It's pretty simple. It does take a little bit of nuance, if you call it that, a little bit different finesse with the fingers as opposed to what you can get away with metal lids. I want to show those aspects to you right now. We'll get close up. We're working with water today, and I want to point out to you it's pretty simple to test and practice with water. Recommend it to people all the time, especially if you're a little bit concerned about using it with your freshly killed chicken from the backyard. I mean, it's important to get an understanding for that learning curve that people speak about. So let me show you some close-ups exactly how to put the metal band on. I'm also going to show you a couple of ways that you can mess the process up, and I'll point out to you what it is I mean by that. So let's dig in here and I'll show you what we're working with. Okay, so here's what we're working with. As I said earlier, we're going to be canning water today. It's an easy test at home. So every one of these jars has 1-inch headspace filled with just tap water. We're going to water bath them, just bring this water up to a boil. We don't worry about heating it or cooking because we're not cooking anything right here. We're just doing a test. So get it up to temperature and then we'll take the jars out and I'll show you after what they look like. So we have 3 wide mouth quarts, 2 regular mouth size pints. These are Kerr, Ball, and this is Golden Harvest. And I'm going to take these two and make them the test jars. I said I can kind of show you how to mess things up. I'm going to show you what happens when you put a metal band on too tight. So we'll do that here in just the next step. I'm going to bring the camera in tight and show you exactly how I put the metal band on. Okay, first jar, it's just as simple as lid and a gasket on top. And I hold one finger down on top of that lid just to hold it in place from moving around. The other fingertips just get it to the point where the jar starts to spin, and that's enough. You don't need to go any tighter than that. That allows pressure release during the canning process, and it doesn't trap anything in there. I'm going to show you with these two what trapping pressure in there looks like. Okay, we'll take the wide mouth red lid and put that on the jar nice and tight. And that's pretty tight. I mean, that's kind of exaggerated, I think, from what most people would do, but I've seen very, very tightly applied lids. If you clamp it down just like that, I think we're going to see these two lids dome up. All right, so there we go. We're ready to put them in the canner. Okay, so you can see my water's boiling. I just took the lid off. This is the point where your process is done. It's time to take the jars out of the canner. I've got a jar lifter here and some gloves I often use just for a little bit of extra protection, but I'll show you the basic method for pulling these out of the canner, tightening the metal band down in the next step. It's important. I'd like you to notice this lid right here. See how this is domed up? That is because I tightened that band down really tight and I've got a bunch of pressure trapped in there. I did it also with this one here. It's a little bit harder to see in the water bath with a regular size lid. They're just so much smaller, but when I pull them out you'll be able to see. It's something that I can visually see between the difference or between a few of these other jars. So let's pull these out and I'll show you on the counter. Pull these jars out, and remember this one here is the one that is domed up in the center, as is this large wide mouth in red. You can see the doming of that lid as opposed to this one that I'm pulling out right now. These others are all normal, again, other than these two. Alright, jars are all out on the table, and with a towel I would just tighten the rest of the way. Now with something like this that's domed, I don't want to tighten that jar. There could be a little bit of pressure trapped in there depending on the product that you're canning with. Now that one turned a fair amount. But the product that you're canning, you know, if there's enough pressure in there, it could squirt out, and we don't want to do that. So these two, leave alone. Let them come down on their own. Those are ones that are going to be a little bit more problematic to deal with. This is indicative of your metal band being too tight before the jar went into the canner. These are all nice and sucked in already. They're starting to cool. That's the way we want them. When all is said and done, these four are going to have good seal. I would question these two. We'll get to that after these cool off. I'm going to take a towel, place it over the top of these, and let them cool down now. And we'll come back after they're all cooled, and then we'll take off the metal bands. Okay, so these are the 6 jars that we started with. Remember, we've got a ball, cur, golden harvest, cur. The red lid here was the one that was tightened, and it came out, it was bulged, and I did not tighten it, if you recall. This also, the golden harvest jar, I tightened this one outside the camera view, but I wanted to have a regular size lid also that was over tightened. And this one came out, it was bulged, I think, if you might recall in the previous part of the video. Anyway, we're going to take these bands off, and should just be able to, by holding the rim, lift that jar off the table. Same thing here. Yeah, should be able to do this. This was the one that was bulged, and yeah, see, this was suspect to me from the very beginning. Well, not from the beginning, but yeah, it was. This is the one that we tested with. I mean, this is what will happen if you have pressure trapped in that jar, and you do not, you can't tighten that rubber gasket down properly. The pressure's constantly pushing up on the underside of that lid until it cools off, and there's not enough time to create a good vacuum. That's what happens, and that's why you will see lids come off immediately after canning. Okay, this is the golden harvest. Again, the same thing. This metal band was too tight to begin with. The lid came out bulged out of the canner. I wasn't able to tighten it down ever, and so there was not enough vacuum created during cooling to pull that, to release the pressure from the jar, or to cool that pressure, and then to suck the lid down completely also. These are all good. Whoa! Yeah. These two, the test, where the band was too tight to begin with, those two failed. So this is just a really simple test you can conduct at home using just water and the materials you already have. You know, we've got 6 jars here, 6 lids. But the rubber gaskets were pulled out of a drawer in my kitchen. The metal rings are just standard old metal rings. We used an assortment of jars, and the ones that failed were the ones that I anticipated would fail. So just keep in mind, the real key factor with using Harvest Guard reusable canning lids is that metal band cannot be too tight on the jar to begin with. If it is, it will come out, you'll see it's domed, and in that case, you shouldn't even tighten it down, because there's pressure trapped in there and you might expel that pressure. In the other situations where the band is on relatively loose and then you tighten it afterwards, let them cool, they will seal, and you'll be able to bang them around, and they'll be in your cupboard for a long time. So, so if you have any questions, feel free to check us out at canninglids.com. We've got frequently asked questions page there. We've got a pretty good amount of information regarding Harvest Guard reusable canning lids. So come check us out. Okay, so there's one final tip, and that is you have to make sure that you tighten the metal band after you take the jars out of the canner. If you forget to do that step, You can also have problems where the rubber gasket fights against the vacuum that's being created, sucking it down, and it doesn't compress properly. You have to manually do a little bit of a twist there. Not much, but just enough to squeeze that gasket down just a little bit, and that way the vacuum does its thing. From that point on, you've got nice tight sealed jars and you should be good. Just remember, don't tighten the metal band too tightly before it goes in the canner, and always tighten it after it comes out. If you see